Go back to Occam's razor. Yep. Conservatives lost the election. It was theirs to lose, and they lost it. And why was that? Probably because of everything I warned you that you weren't doing. And so, there you go. Hi, thanks for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe. If you have any tips you'd like to leave me, just leave them down in the comments. Always looking for new stories to pilfer, to talk about, if we're not already talking about them. Well, so there you have it. When you have a party platform that doesn't have the courage to talk about the things that are the elephant in the room, well, you end up with the result that you have. What has happened in Canada over the last 5 years? We have had the most divisive government in the entire history. Well, at least in the last 50 years that I've been politically sentient in this country. I can't believe what people have done to themselves. Well, actually, I can believe it because I had posted a video earlier of how liberal minds are broken. But you could have pierced through that broken mind issue had you stuck to your guns, but you didn't. You know, the most divisive issue that we've had in the past 50 years has been the COVID mandates. Right? These COVID mandates took away people's jobs, made them second-class citizens. Faced with unemployment and medical fascism that wouldn't allow you to participate in society unless you took the injection, even though at the time the adverse events little piece of paper that came in with the vial was blank, which is, not good if you'd like to know what's in it. After all that, you could have talked about that. No, you know why you didn't? You didn't because you tried to play by their rules. Again, when are you going to bloody learn? You cannot play by the liberals' rules. Yes, you could have come out. You could have said, you could have run on the fact the liberals are a party of being unalived. I can't say the D word on CommieTube because they'll pull this down. Being unalived, right? Because that's all they've done is unalive people with their policies. 50,000 plus unalived through overdoses because of their harm reduction. 50,000 plus unalived because of the medical assistance in unaliving. And who knows how many have been unalived with these medical injections. We don't know because they stopped doing autopsies just as they roll this out. They stop looking into what actually was killing people. Now, I've done a prior video where we know that they were exaggerating the COVID cases. In Greece, they've done it in other areas. We know they did it here. They did it in the States. There's plenty of stories showing how they did it because the hospitals were getting extra money from the cases, but it doesn't matter. All this was part of the scam that they pushed on people to push them into fear. And they reinforced that fear by making sure that everybody walked around with a face diaper on, reinforcing that fear all the time. My God, you still see people walking around today with this brains broken. Not even understanding that a paper cloth mask has a filtration factor of 0 when it comes to stopping any foreign particles from coming in. They're too small. Think you're going to save yourself from an airborne virus wearing a surgical mask? You're out of your mind. That's right. The entire system is out of its mind. But you didn't talk about that. You didn't talk about the vaccine injuries and the vaccine unaliveness. No, you didn't. You didn't talk about all the people that lost their jobs about making that right. You didn't talk about all the people that abused their positions of power in coercing other people to take it. You didn't talk about that at all. You didn't talk about the fact that the science was pretty hinky and still continues to be, and that consensus science had replaced real science, where you're actually allowed to question things. No, you didn't talk about that at all. You didn't talk about the climate scam based on IPCC data modeling that has never been correct once. Not once. Every single projection that they have made has always been wrong, but yet we push our government policy on that. You didn't go far enough. You talked about reducing the carbon, but of course, the mainstream media, the government apparatchik, their propaganda kept going on about everything that you said. You just needed to accept the fact that they were going to put you down regardless of what you said. But no, you tried to play their game again. Again, you try to play their game. You never learn your lesson. All you have to do is point out the truth of things. You stick to the truth, you always win. Because they will call you a conspiracy theorist. They will call you a liar. They will call you everything under the book, just like they did. Just like they did in this election. That's right. And what did you do? You played their game and you lost. When are you going to learn? When are you going to bloody learn, conservatives? But maybe it's because we don't really have a conservative party. What we have is just a party with a few conservatives and mostly red Tories, most of them wishing that they were back in the old progressive conservative days when they could mine the middle liberal mindset that has been perpetuated and inculcated and cultivated here in this country, of constantly unable to associate the fact that the free stuff that they're getting isn't free because it's coming from the taxpayer's hand, which is dwindling and getting smaller while all the takers keep taking and taking and taking and taking and wasting and wasting and wasting, and nobody cares. Nobody cares. And now the GST that we collect doesn't even cover the debt interest payments. Yeah, that's a success story, isn't it? What a success story that the Liberals have brought upon Canada. A country so divided that not only is the West going to look at seceding again, but of course, the secession discussion has never stopped in Quebec. Not since I first experienced it in 1977 when I was made a second class citizen. Didn't even realize it. I mean, I was just coming into my political experience as a young lad in high school. I come back from high school. I come back into my next grade of high school, grade 10. I was in an English high school in northern Quebec, in Val d'Or, and they had just passed Bill 101, which meant basically that French was going to be protected in Quebec, and they had instituted a bunch of laws, especially the language laws. And when it came to the language laws and it came to the signs on buildings, you had to follow the law, which means that primarily it had to be in French. And you couldn't have any English on that sign unless, 70% of your business was owned outside the province. And then you could have part of that sign in English. But primarily, it still had to be in French. That's right. So I come back to my high school, and my high school was actually a combination, right? It had a wing for the elementary and it had a wing for the high school kids. And it was a Catholic high school. And down the road was the Protestant high school. Our high school had about 300 students in it, in a high school wing. The Protestant high school down the road had about 75 students. And the Français Polyvalent down the road, the French high school, well, they had about 2,700 students. So already, I mean, French language was very much protected. But there I was going back to school, and it was St. Joseph's High School, huge brass letters on the side of the wall, right? About as tall as a man could stand, huge brass letters. St. Joseph's High School. I come back from summer holidays, and those letters have been ripped out of the wall. Huge chunks the size of my fist missing from where the anchors were ripped out of the bricks and replaced with a white boarded sign, painted white with black letters. Very well done, mind you, but in black letters, École Saint-Joseph, because it had to be in French. I really didn't notice that at the time, but my folks were experiencing the second class citizenship issue because they were both born in Northern Ontario, fully bilingual, but they weren't born in Quebec. So they weren't treated like Quebecois. And so our family moved. Family moved into Ontario. And how many years later, all of a sudden, for refusing to be injected with an experimental injection that had no adverse event sheet, that had no history of proper human trials. That's right, there were no proper human trials. You had 90 days. Pfizer did a 90-day Pfizer trial with theirs. And at the end of it, they ended up giving the injection to the placebo group, thus nullifying the study group. But that's okay. We'll stick that in you. You don't care what'll happen because it feels good. That's right. The virtue signaling was there. It feels good. Right. Then as a result of people feeling good, well, then after that, some people didn't feel too well. right? And all the people that don't feel well today because they took it, and all the people that are not here on this earth anymore because they took it, nobody cares about them. And certainly nobody during the election campaign cared about them or their families or the people that were injured. Nobody cared about them at all. Nobody cared about the biggest fraud committed on Canadians. And yes, it was a fraud, and even Health Canada admitted to that fraud. Even Health Canada admitted to that fraud when they insisted that this shot did not have DNA contaminants, only to turn around and acquiesce and say, "Oh, sorry. Yes, it does have simian virus 40 DNA contamination, but no, don't worry. It's not a big deal. It's not a big thing, right? It's even though it's a cancer promoter, but no, not really. You'll be fine. You'll be fine." Yeah, no, people are not fine. People are not talking about the excess death rates at all since the injection. They're just going to point to the validity stupidity and says, "No, no, it's the virus did it. The virus." Well, yeah, probably the virus did it too, but it certainly didn't help with everybody being injected with medical treatment that was going to turn their body into a spike producing factory to elicit an immune response, not knowing when that spike factory was going to shut off, not knowing if those spikes were being shed from one person to the next. And we know everybody that took it still ended up with the flu, the really bad flu. In fact, they seem to be getting the flu all the time now, those who took it. But nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about the elephant in the room. How many people's lives were ruined by this. As a cross section, if you want to look at Canadian society as a whole, for the people that actually put their lives before country, right? The people that are ready to make the ultimate sacrifice. Those people have to have something in their head that says, I'm going to put aside my own personal needs and I'm going to put my life on the line for this country. And that's what those people did in the Canadian Armed Forces when they signed that line. That's what they did. But that didn't matter to the politicians that said, no, no, no. The risk you've taken, and in some cases, we're talking to veterans saying this, the risk you've taken doesn't matter unless you get the jibby jab. It doesn't matter. Well, it's going to bloody matter soon, boys and girls. It's going to matter bloody soon, right? Last year, what did you have? You had an increase of what, 12 or 17 troops compared to the people that are leaving, to the amount that you brought in through recruit training, right? And anyone who's spent any time in the armed forces to the point of understanding how a career manager works and how they have to deal with their numbers that are issued all the way up through training as those people progress in that trade and they gain experience, and you have to move them and you have to think of where you're going to put them next. That has been a bloody nightmare for the career managers because out of a drop of a hat, people are just saying enough is enough, right? Because the Liberal government coerced the Canadian Armed Forces members into taking this COVID-19 injection. And then they turned around and said, sorry, if you experienced any injuries or unaliveness from it, had nothing to do with the work. No, it's not work related. And you're still required to have 3 when you join. So you have a chain of command that blatantly, blindly follows these immoral, unethical orders without doing anything. So you have an abusive chain of command that will not respect the dignity of its own members, doesn't care about morale because, they're following the orders of their betters. You've completely abandoned what's right. You don't even know what's going on there, liberals. Imagine if you joined an organization that said they were going to take care of you and then turned around and made you grab your ankles and did the other dirty thing to you, saying, "Oh no, this is the kind of care we told you we're going to give you. You like it? Keep taking it, buddy." No. I have one piece of advice. Next time you're going to run a campaign, if you're conservative, stop being a bloody coward. Stop being afraid of talking about anything that somebody's going to call you a name over, because it just shows how weak and pathetic you are. Just completely pathetic. And as a result, what happened? Right? You didn't have the better message. You didn't have the better message. You had a chance and you blew it again. Will you ever learn? I doubt it. I doubt it. Unless, for the next 2 years, I figure it'll probably take that long before this government falls and there's another election. Unless, in the next 2 years, you decide to talk about the abuse, the misery, and the Delta Echo Alpha Tango Hotel that this party, this liberal party, causes nonstop. Until you start pointing to all the bodies and saying that they're responsible for it, you're not going to get any traction with the few liberals whose minds you might be able to turn. Because in my experience, what I've just experienced now over the past 4 years from liberals is that they do not care that people are alive as long as their ideology pushes forward, just like communism, just like fascism, and now just like Canadian liberalism. This has been Occam's Razor. Maybe tomorrow will be a better day. See you next time.